NASA just shocked everyone. They might cancel SpaceX's Artemis moon mission and give it to Blue Origin instead. After years of progress, Starship could lose the contract it earned. Why would NASA risk everything now? Is this really about competition, or is politics and lobbying money twisting the truth behind closed doors? One thing's certain, Elon Musk is furious. Let's dive right in. So why would NASA suddenly move to cancel SpaceX's Artemis contract, the same mission they once called the future of human space exploration? At first glance, NASA claims it's about speed and competition. But behind that statement lies something much deeper, a web of politics, power, and money that could reshape who leads humanity back to the moon. NASA's official story sounds simple. The Artemis lunar program will now be reopened for new contractors, giving others like Blue Origin a chance. But insiders see it differently. This isn't about improving performance, it's about regaining control. For years, NASA's own rocket, the Space Launch System, SLS, has drained billions in taxpayer money while falling behind schedule. The rocket uses refurbished space shuttle engines from the 1980s, then discards them into the ocean after each launch. Each SLS mission costs over $4 billion, with almost nothing reusable. Meanwhile, SpaceX developed fully reusable rockets at less than 2% of that cost, flying multiple times per week. That difference doesn't just look bad on paper. It exposes a painful truth. NASA's traditional system can't compete with the pace of private innovation, and that's exactly why some within the system want to slow SpaceX down. When NASA first chose SpaceX for Artemis, many of its biggest partners, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Blue Origin, were furious. Billions in contracts disappeared overnight. Since then, a wave of political pressure has quietly built up in Washington. According to federal filings, Blue Origin spends over $1 million per year lobbying Congress, while Boeing spends several times that amount. Their influence reaches the very committees that control NASA's $25 billion annual budget. So when deadlines are missed or costs explode, these legacy contractors rarely suffer consequences. Their funding keeps flowing because it's politically distributed across multiple states and jobs. SpaceX, however, breaks that system. They're efficient, independent, and accountable only to results. They deliver, and they do it faster and cheaper than anyone else. That's great for progress, but bad for politics. NASA argues it's worried about delays, but the numbers don't lie. In 2024, SpaceX launched 134 rockets, setting an all-time global record. By mid-2025, they had already launched over 80 more, many carrying satellites, Starlinks, and test payloads for the Starship program. Their success rate? Above 95%, with Starship now consistently reaching orbit and re-entering safely. Meanwhile, Blue Origin has barely left the ground. Their flagship rocket, New Glenn, has flown only once and failed to recover its booster. The program remains years behind schedule. So when NASA says SpaceX needs competition, the reality feels backward. The only company proving it can actually deliver is the one NASA is trying to sideline. This isn't about engineering, it's about money and influence. NASA doesn't directly lobby, but it's surrounded by organizations that do, and they're shaping where the billions go. Every year, powerful defense contractors and space firms pour money into federal lobbying. The result? Budgets and programs that protect jobs, not innovation. The SLS program, for example, employs tens of thousands of workers across multiple states. Canceling it would cause political backlash. So NASA has to play both sides, publicly praising SpaceX's innovation while quietly protecting traditional partners who keep Congress happy. And that's how decisions like this happen. Instead of doubling down on what's working, NASA dilutes the mission, inviting more partners, adding more bureaucracy, and inevitably delaying the timeline again. The irony is that Starship, the very reason NASA selected SpaceX in the first place, is performing better than ever. At 120 meters tall, it's the largest and most powerful rocket ever built. Its fully reusable system, combined with orbital refueling, could make sustained lunar and Mars missions possible for the first time in history. SpaceX's iterative design philosophy, test, fail, fix, repeat, has allowed them to achieve what government projects take decades to do. In just a few years, they've moved from early prototypes to operational starships reaching orbit and safely returning to Earth. So when NASA claims SpaceX isn't moving fast enough, it raises a serious question. What standard are they even using? Even Elon Musk himself has hinted that this isn't about progress. It's about control. Because if Starship succeeds, and it's close, it will make nearly every government-built rocket obsolete. Let's break down the numbers further. NASA's Artemis program could exceed $90 billion by the time it completes just a few missions. Meanwhile, SpaceX could execute dozens of lunar-capable Starship launches for a fraction of that. Yet year after year, NASA keeps funneling money into outdated programs. The uncomfortable truth is that success from SpaceX threatens the entire ecosystem of contractors that NASA has relied on for decades. If the public starts asking why one private company can launch weekly while NASA's own rocket can barely launch once every 2 years, the pressure to reform becomes unstoppable. That's why NASA's leadership is walking a tightrope, balancing real progress with political expectations. There's also an international angle. NASA's justification for the new competition is that China is closing the gap. But if you compare actual data, that claim doesn't hold. In 2024, China conducted 68 launches. A national record, yes, but still barely half of SpaceX's total. In 2025, their numbers rose, but not enough to overtake American dominance in orbit. So the idea that China is catching up looks more like a political talking point than a technical fact. Ironically, by slowing SpaceX down, NASA could end up helping China catch up, the exact opposite of its stated goal. At the heart of this entire drama lies a philosophical battle between the old model of government-led exploration and the new age of private innovation. NASA built the foundation of spaceflight. SpaceX is building its future. But instead of working hand in hand, the relationship has turned uneasy. One side wants safety, procedure, and predictability. The other thrives on risk, iteration, and speed. It's not that NASA doesn't respect SpaceX. It's that SpaceX represents everything NASA used to be: bold, agile, visionary. And that contrast makes traditional systems uncomfortable. So when Musk speaks out, accusing NASA of political interference, it's not just frustration, it's a warning. If politics keeps steering the mission, America could lose its leadership in space not to China, but to its own bureaucracy. Right now, nothing is final. NASA hasn't officially canceled SpaceX's role, but the wording in their latest statements suggests they're leaning toward a multi-contractor approach. That might sound fair, but in reality, it slows everything down. Coordinating multiple companies with different technologies and timelines almost always leads to delay and cost overruns. If NASA truly wants America back on the moon soon, keeping SpaceX in the lead is the fastest path forward. Because whether people like Musk or not, his team delivers. They've proven that reusable rocketry isn't a dream, it's reality. And when you compare results, no one else even comes close. So where does this leave us? At a crossroads between two futures. One where innovation drives humanity beyond Earth, and another where bureaucracy buries progress under layers of politics. This isn't just about Elon Musk or NASA. It's about whether the U.S. will continue leading the next frontier or surrender it to industry. And that's the truth behind NASA's shocking decision. This isn't about competition, it's about control. If politics keep steering the mission, real progress will stall. But if innovation leads, humanity moves forward, faster, farther, and stronger. Starship isn't just a rocket. It's the foundation for everything NASA once dreamed of: returning to the moon, building a base, and one day reaching Mars. While others debate, SpaceX is already making it real. So what do you think? Should NASA stick with SpaceX or risk falling behind again? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. This is Space Hub, where we uncover the truth behind every major space breakthrough. If you found this video valuable, leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to Space Hub for more in-depth analysis. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update from us. Because this story isn't ending, it's just beginning. NASA just reopened its lunar contract, allowing Blue Origin to compete directly with SpaceX for the moon landing. But Elon Musk has just exposed a major flaw in Blue Origin's lunar lander, one that could jeopardize NASA's entire Artemis mission. Is Blue Origin really ready to take the lead? Or is this another costly mistake that could set America back in the space race? Let's dive right in. Officially, NASA said the move was about fostering competition. The agency wanted a plan B in case SpaceX's Starship fell behind schedule. But behind that polite phrase lies a political truth. This decision wasn't made in a lab. It was made in Washington. Under growing pressure from the White House, NASA was told to accelerate lunar operations before China lands its first crewed mission. The optics of falling behind Beijing were unacceptable. So NASA reopened the contract, allowing Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin to compete again. On the surface, it sounds fair. Diversify, add competition, move faster. But here's where it gets messy. Blue Origin has never launched a single payload to orbit. Not once. SpaceX, meanwhile, has launched over 600 missions, built reusable rockets, and ferried NASA astronauts to the ISS at a fraction of traditional costs. So when NASA picked Blue Origin,